Right, okay then Bob, what I'm going to show you now is the picking open of an Ingersoll 10 lever cylinder lock. You would have seen from the website how the lock actually works, but I'll just run over that again quickly. What we basically got in here is 5 levers at the top and 5 levers at the bottom of the lock. We've got a locking bar on one side, and each of the levers in the lock have got an open gate. When the key's not actually in the lock, all them gates are misaligned, which means any sort of tension that we apply to the lock, the bar is just not being allowed to sit as low as it should do. So at this moment it's sat proud and it's sat in the lock case. When the correct key's put into the lock, all them gates are aligned, which means at the same time as we turn, that bar is allowed to sit into them gates and the plug will turn. So a little bit like when we pick a deadlock, much of the same principles are going to apply to when we're picking this lock, and that is when we apply tension to the plug, that in turn will push that locking bar down onto all 10 levers in the lock, but it won't be making the same amount of contact with all 10. Some will have slightly more downward force applied to them. They're the ones that we'll be able to feel as we pick through the lock, which probably feel a little bit tighter. As we pick through, that's what we do. We concentrate on any of the levers that feel tight, and perhaps give them a little bit more help. We have to apply a fair bit of tension to the plug as well for us to actually pick the lock. The tools that I'm going to use is basically just a small little tension tool. The tension tool itself is quite a rigid one. Okay, it's got no real sort of flex or play in that, because we need to apply a fair bit of tension onto the lock. And the pick that I'll be using is a basic little hook pick. Okay, and what I'll be doing, I'll be going in, perhaps picking the bottom of the plug first, then I'll reverse my hook pick and pick through the top, then bottom, then top, then bottom, then top, etc. Hopefully we're going to reach the point where the lock opens, but as with any form of picking, we may over pick the lock, which means we may have to reset, and that's the trick as well, obviously, to know when you reach the point to allow the lock to reset and start through again. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on this a bit so you can see a bit more what's going on. Hopefully my phone won't ring whilst we're doing this again, but it probably will. Okay, so I insert my tension tool, in this case at the bottom of the plug, because I'm going to go round in a clockwise direction. Okay, remember also this type of lock actually operates a dead bolt as opposed to an actual latch. So we always unlock away from the locking side, so i.e. left mounted clockwise, right mounted anti-clockwise. Okay, so I insert my tension tool all the way in, as deep into the lock as it will go, then I slightly retract, so I don't want to bind anything in the lock. I'll get my tension on, quite a firm bit of tension. I'm going to start to pick through at the bottom of the lock first, get my hook pick to sit on top of each little disc in there, seeing if it's got any spring load. If it does, I'll just ignore that, moving on to ones that need a little bit of help down. Okay, let's go through. And you've got to take your time with this, because they're quite hard sometimes to get your pick on top of. Note how I keep my hands nice and close to the plug. Okay, so that's the bottom. Let's go through the top. Just taking my time picking through. End of the day, if it's still got a spring load on it, then I just ignore that one. Feeling for ones that feel tight, like there. You can see I can use my thumb to give that a bit of help. Okay, at the back of the lock, go back through at the bottom. You see, I'm just taking my time with this, not trying to rush it. Okay, back to the top. So I can use my thumb as a guide for the hook pick. The tension's remaining much the same throughout the picking process. Okay, I'm not giving it tweaks on and off as you would a pin tumbler lock, because the lock isn't going to react in the same way. See, I'm just going through nice and slowly, just get my hook pick on top of each one. Getting to the top. Tight one there, but it's got no lift in it. So at the end of the day, if there's one that's tight and it really doesn't want to move anymore, it's probably in the right place. So I'm really concentrating on anything that's actually still got a bit of give in it. Back to the top. Sometimes you may actually be able to hear them clicking back down. Okay, it's just sometimes where you ease off on the tension a bit too much. So you can see I'm just taking my time with it, not trying to rush through it. Tight one there. So I'll just use my thumb to give it a bit more help. So I may have to reset this in a second. Don't be concerned, because all the time that you do that, you're just building up a better picture of the lock. Just going to ease that back a touch just to allow some of them top ones to reset, as you just heard there. Tight one, another tight. To the bottom. Back to the top. So I'm sure you can see it's just all about taking your time with this lock. Tight one there, and there. Go to the bottom. Tight one. To the top. Tight one there. No lift in it. Very tight one there. Just get underneath it.
You have email.
So you just heard I got email. And my phone's going. Back to the bottom. Going to go through this top one once more. There. Okay. See, it just turns. So you can see the trick is with this, really taking your time, and eventually you'll be able to pick it. Okay. Obviously, when you're picking this type of lock, the trick is to take your time. Because if you don't take your time, you're going to get a bit frustrated with it, and perhaps you'll jump to other techniques, i.e. to drill the lock perhaps. Or perhaps if it hasn't got a letterbox, perhaps to end up having to drill a hole in the actual door to get an Ingersoll lock opener in. But if you do take your time with a lock, eventually they do pick, and obviously picking is the most professional way to go.